what's up guys? It's the Basketball Doctors here. We're gonna go over Q&A and we have different little topics going from ankle, knee to Osgood Schlatters. So stay tuned. My name is Dr. Marco Lopez.
My name is Dr. Gabe Ignacio, Doctors of Physical Therapy, co-founders of the Basketball Doctors. Like Marco mentioned, just here with our classic Q&A with the Basketball Doctors, answering some of the questions from all our different platforms, and just combining the most common questions to provide some information, education to you guys. So yeah, we'll just get into it. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's go into the first question by Martin Ruiz, the Merchant. How long would someone wait before going back to active play? I sprained my ankle about 6 weeks ago, and I've been rehabbing it and started strength training a week ago, and I feel like it's getting strong, but just not sure how long I should wait till I go back to playing and running. What do you think, Gabe?
Probably one of the more common questions for any injury of like, how soon can I get back to playing basketball? At least for this guy, it seems like he's doing a good job of not taking an ankle sprain lightly and actually doing his rehab, which a lot of hoopers don't do. They just rest, ice, and take some time off and then go right back into playing. So to answer his question though, with time frame of returning to basketball after an ankle sprain, one, it depends on the grade of the ankle sprain. It's from grade 1 to grade 3, grade 1 being a very minor one, grade 3 being like a full thickness tear or a major ankle sprain. They could range from grade 1 of a couple days to like 4 weeks. Grade 2 is more of like your 4 to 8 week recovery. Grade 3, if you don't require surgery, a lot sooner. If you require surgery, a lot longer. But typically maybe like a 3 to 4 month recovery is kind of what to expect. But at the end of the day, that time frame doesn't matter if you don't do rehab. So you could be waiting 2 to 4 weeks if you had a low grade ankle sprain and go back to basketball, but not be in any better shape of not having another injury if you don't do rehab. So our thing is the best and most important thing to do is rehab, and that could progress you faster back into playing sport and reduce your risk for injury. So it's one of the things that if it's a low grade or high grade, do your rehab, you'll be actually playing basketball a lot sooner and you'll feel like you're performing a lot better. So that's kind of our 2 cents about giving timeframes of returning to sport. Marco, how about you?
I think he covered all the points that I wanted to mention. I think the only thing I want to mention is our ankle sprain program, because that's one of the, like Gabe said, one of the most common questions, and we have that in our online ankle sprain program. We have like a rubric too of like, hey, before you go back into running, playing, these are certain tests that you want to do. So Martin, check out our ankle sprain rehab program, and like Gabe said, you have to do the rehab. So he's already one step ahead of the game. He's rehabbing it, but there's only so much that you could do with strength wise. You always want to go into dynamic different movements, and that's what we cover in our online ankle sprain rehab program. You can do it all at home, and those checkpoints are crucial because it's all about checkpoints. Make sure you decrease your risk for re-injury. It's better safe than sorry, and passing these checkpoints will get you in a safe place.
Yeah, and just to add more on top of that, our ankle sprain programs, we have different lengths of them. We have our early ankle sprain, we have our just return to sport one, or you can get the full program. We'll put the links in below. But yeah, man, do your rehab. It's one that's the most common injury in basketball, ankle sprains at all level. And unfortunately, we just don't see people doing enough rehab for it. Don't take it lightly. It can cause more issues. Not only at the ankle, but up the chain. So
exactly.
Okay, next one, we're gonna go to the shoulder, and it's from Bizway. My shoulder can't externally rotate more than a few degrees. What's going on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things here. So so let's go into the shoulder. So here's my shoulder. We're gonna go into the different motions. We have flexion, we have abduction, then we have adduction going inside. But then we also have internal rotation, meaning arm inside our body, and then external rotation, arm outside. So think about external rotation, you being able to throw a ball. If you don't have good external rotation, you can't throw a ball, you can't throw a pass. Internal rotation is more, I can't put my hand behind my back. So if he can't externally rotate his arm more than a few degrees, you want to get to at least to that position here, where our shoulders here, we're externally rotated because here's 0. Here's that position here. So if you could only rotate a few degrees, a couple things that what I would ask is like, how old are they? Was there a traumatic injury? Or, as they get older, do they just, have severe arthritis or their joints not moving? Or if in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they might have frozen shoulder. There's a lot of things, but I'm thinking, one, if you can't move it for a few degrees, it's more of a joint issue. It depends on the age, depends what happened. Was there a particular injury, or did it just come along? If it just came along, I'm thinking more frozen shoulder, but you have to be, in your 40s, 50s for that. It's really hard to say. But whenever we look at range of motion, we want to find out if it's a joint issue, muscular issue, or there may be some control issue. I don't know. It's a tough one. What do you think, Gabe?
Yeah, I think there's different ways of answering this question. So I think the first thing is, how old are they? Kind of what Marco mentioned, if it's frozen shoulder, you're likely like past your 30s, kind of built up over time. There was maybe a traumatic injury like a couple months ago, and then now it's starting to freeze up. If you're younger, was there a specific injury, an old injury? Like it could be like a labrum tear or like an old labrum tear that's not allowing that joint to move cleanly now. So yeah, we include this question because you kind of want to get in our thought process of how we like differentiate, diagnose things. With just that information, it's going to be impossible to actually answer it. But big thing early on is trying to figure out if they can move their shoulder actively or passively. So actively is the person moving it themselves. That gives us information, versus if they can't move it actively but can move it passively, then we're thinking more of like it's an active structure like your muscles or tendons. If they can't move it actively and can't move it passively, then we're thinking more of like a passive structure issue like your labrum, adhesive capsulitis, or in frozen shoulder type of situation. Either way, if you can't externally rotate your arm a few degrees, please go get checked out by a healthcare provider. Don't rely on people from YouTube like us or Dr. Google to tell you what to do. Don't take pain lightly. Don't normalize pain. Get things looked at by appropriate healthcare provider and make sure you do your own research as well. Just like anybody you talk to, just do your own research, because at the end of the day, it's your body and you're making a decision for yourself. So just be knowledgeable with what you're deciding to do. I think is the best thing, the way we can answer this question.
I mean, yeah, and then I forgot to mention the pain too. Is there pain and you can barely move, that's another, like Gabe said, it's another thing. But a few degrees is very limiting. You can't really function in life if you only have a couple degrees almost. All right, guys, next question is by user 111 Rio. I have weight training class in my high school and I do deadlift, squats, and all sorts of leg exercises. I feel slight pulsing pain from my Osgood Schlatters, but it isn't terrible. Do I have to entirely quit normal leg exercises, or can I still do them? My PT told me I could still do things with my legs and my Osgood Schlatters won't get worse, but my knees will hurt more if I do them. Is there any of this true? What's your advice?
It's a great question from this guy. I actually had Osgood Schlatters in both my knees when I was growing up, and it is painful. But to answer his question regarding his PT advice, there is for sure some validity to what the PT is saying, because we're on the same boat. You should be able to do some type of leg exercises or leg movements while dealing with Osgood Schlatters, because it is a growing pain issue. But with weight training class, inherently if you have Osgood Schlatters disease, you're probably very quad dominant, and that's what causes the disease to start, where it starts pulling at that tibial tuberosity. With squatting, he's probably very quad dominant. That's probably why he's getting some pain. Deadlifting should be okay if you have good form and actually using your posterior chain. Other leg exercise, I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm assuming if he's in a weight training class, it's probably like lunges, step ups, things like that. And like I mentioned, he's probably very quad dominant as it is. So with that being said, before you do, what we mean by doing leg exercises as from coming from PTs is making sure you're correcting your movement patterns so that you're not overly quad dominant. And you might not be ready to do some of those exercises yet, so you might hold off on things and gradually work your way up to there. So it also depends on how severe and how acutely painful your Osgood Schlatter disease is, because if you're later on and your body's kind of adjusted and your tendon isn't as irritated, then you can start doing some of this stuff. But for the most part, you should be focusing more on your posterior chain, improving your mechanics, loosening up the front structures like your quads, hip flexors, adductors, all that stuff, so that it doesn't continue to pull on that tibial tuberosity. I feel like you should be able to do some stuff. It's just trying to figure out the right challenge for you. Marco, anything else?
Finding out if they're quad dominant during these movements, because sometimes people do a deadlift more of a squat variation, so that might be pulling on it. But you also don't want to be doing too many exercises where it makes your Osgood Schlatter pain worse, because then you might start re-aggravating, then may potentially lead to an avulsion fracture, worst case scenario. But you want to make sure you're doing the right exercises, like Gabe said, more hip dominant, working more glute, hamstring. That way you decrease that pain in that Osgood Schlatter, because Osgood Schlatter is very pain dependent. So we want to work on that. We also have an Osgood Schlatter's rehab program. It's all online. It's great to teach you all the little exercises to make sure you're progressing the right way, and really working on changing up the movement patterns. That way you don't have this discomfort throughout your high school career. Just be careful on pushing through too much pain. You want to limit the pain. There should be there's okay to be a little bit of pain, but if there's too much, then maybe you're overdoing it, you're doing the wrong exercises. But there's definitely a leg exercise, and that's why we have an online rehab program for you to do all these exercises that are going to be pain-free.
Yeah, 100%. Just to piggyback a little bit more, like I said, I had Osgood Schlatter disease growing up. I had a late growth spurt, and it was like my junior year, and I didn't know any better. I saw a PT maybe like once or twice, and I was like, I'll be fine. I'll just play through it type of thing. And I did end up playing through it, and that ended up screwing me up for the rest of the season. I like had to go on crutches. Like I wasn't able to move. Like just getting to and from class was really painful. It's a really painful disease. It sucks. So I get it. I didn't know any better. So listen to me from what I've been through and like what we've learned through education. Don't irritate it. Just go pushing through it and irritating is just going to make it worse for you. It is one of the ones that you will grow out of. During the time, it is not fun, and I wish I listened to my PT more and did rehab instead of trying to just like screw it, I'll play through it, and ended up costing me my season. So yeah, that's just some advice from a older basketball player. All right, last question here. I don't feel any pain, but I feel a lot of pressure on my knee when I try and squat very deep. Is that normal? Is that okay? Will it get better?
We'd have to kind of dive this into a little deeper, but first of all, is sometimes when you don't have full range of motion, that's one thing, is you're kind of forcing it into more range of motion than it's supposed to have, and maybe that's why you feel some pressure per se, because I know it feels pressure. Another thing too is, especially when squatting, deep squatting, you'll be surprised if you don't have good ankle mobility, then that's going to put a lot of pressure on the knee joint itself. So working on ankle mobility, one thing that I would say is, this is a quick test you can find out if you have adequate motion, is if you use a slant board, so meaning like use something that elevates your heels, some kind of platform, and then go into a squat. If you're able to go deeper and there's less pressure in your knee, that could have been more of an ankle mobility little issue. So I would first look at your ankle, check out if you have adequate range of motion in your ankle. If you do, then we're looking at something else, but maybe just working on slowly getting comfortable in those deep squat positions. But I think ankle mobility is one thing right away. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I think ankle mobility is huge. I think what Marco just said with the decline squat, or like putting your heels on some like 5-pound plates or something and see if you go deeper, is a great test. And if you have good ankle mobility, then it's just like a tissue tolerance thing. If you don't normally squat deep and you just try and do it, it's going to be uncomfortable. So kind of like progressively overloading, like how you do with like a normal workout routine. You want to progressively work your way lower and lower and build that tolerance that way. Also doing like isometrics deep in that range will help kind of build that tolerance, or doing eccentrics going down and using like your arms to pull you up. So it should get better, but like Marco said, I would check the ankles first for sure.
And we have a bunch of ankle mobility videos. We'll mention some in the description below. But really work on that ankle mobility, then try the decline and see where it's at.
So yeah, that's the questions that we had for today. If you have any questions related to these topics, or any other questions you want to ask us, whether it's injury, rehab, sports performance, our lives, like how do we become doctors of physical therapy, what we do, ask them below. We're more than happy to answer them, especially if it's a common question. Or you can reach out to us on any of our other platforms. We'll include the links to all of our programs that we mentioned down below, as well as any information that we feel like is important for you guys. If you have anything else, just let us know or send us an email at info@thebasketballdoctors.com. Anything else, Marco?
That's about it. We are the Basketball Doctors.
Let's ball
for life.